People saves lives in our community.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely. Can't be out in the streets. Because it is my fault. So if you're in the gym, and worst man in the streets, you might have just missed a bullet that was for somebody else before you.
You know, our whole world collapsed in that day.
And whatever coward did this, I hope you caught. Turn yourself in.
It was willful, deliberate, premeditated. They wanted Lamont Adair dead.
He was a good child. He was a good guy. He was doing something that, mattered.
The video is chilling because you just see the brazen act very clearly.
And my brother did not leave the house thinking that he was going to die that day.
He was the one who made the call for him to come up there. He was the one who put Lamont in a location to be a victim of this murder.
Summer 2018. Seat Pleasant, Maryland. A tough suburb just outside of Washington, D.C. A 24-year-old aspiring basketball star, Lamont Adair, has just earned the opportunity of a lifetime. The chance to play professional ball in China.
Oh, he loved basketball. It didn't matter what was going on. If someone called him, Lamont, you want to play ball? He was there. I'm Urania Jackson. I am Lamont's older sister. He always had a basketball somewhere in his hands. Next to family, basketball was everything.
You think it's funny, too? You think it's funny?
He was just really excited. My name is Darlene Rainey. I'm Lamont William Adair Jr.'s mom. He didn't care if he went overseas. He didn't care if he played for the NBA. He just liked to play ball. I thought he played better than Michael Jordan, but
For him, it was like the break that he's been waiting for. Everything was falling into place. Everything was going the way he wanted it to go.
Lamont's path to professional success was full of adversity, but he's always had the support of an adoring family.
Lamont was born on October 23rd, 1993, in the morning, the day of my baby shower. I was helping. Well, I wasn't supposed to be helping with the baby shower, but I was. So I started having labor pains.
We were setting up decorations and everything, and she started having contractions, and she drove herself to the hospital. I was in the 6th grade, and I remember being so excited. He had everyone's heart and wrapped around his fingers, basically.
A little spoiled, but in the sense that that's family and he's a baby brother. Whatever he wanted, he could have gotten from any of us.
Oh, Lord. As a child, Lamont was very busy. Anything that we were doing, he wanted to do it. That's where his basketball career came in, because we would play basketball across the street from my grandmother's house. So whenever we played, we didn't go easy on him. We would just play him just like anyone else. Like, you're going to have to beat us to get to the court. So I think him going through that, it actually helped build his skill.
He started to really hone in on his craft. Like, he was really good at it and really competitive. And then when he started getting taller, it was just like, wow. We called him Monty, but on the basketball court, they called him Tree. He did own the name Tree, just like in his reaching for the ball, being able to dunk.
High school success leads to a chance to play college ball in the Midwest.
He's the first out of all of my mom's kids to go away to college. So we're excited. Iowa was a bit far for us, but you know where he is, and you know he's going for a purpose.
I said, so what do you do out there in Iowa? He's like, they don't do anything but tip cows out here. And I was like, what is that? He's like, they tip cows over. I think he really missed home a lot.
After some basketball injuries and bouts of homesickness, Lamont drops out. Back in Seat Pleasant, he must contend with a different set of concerns.
The level of violence is escalating here. It worried him to come back home. He was scared that something would happen to him.
You would hear of gun violence. You would hear of, different tragedies. If you cross out of Maryland, you're right there in D.C., and sometimes the crime from D.C. would come over into Prince George's County.
But Lamont continues to work on his game, and in 2018, earns his shot to play in China. Months earlier, he received even more thrilling news from an ex-girlfriend. Lamont is going to be a father.
His son's name is Makai. I remember the first time meeting him, I was like, he is the epitome of his father. It just is amazing how DNA is passed to the next generation because he acts just like him. His stance and everything is just like him.
On August 7th, Lamont shares exciting news about his son with his sister Urania.
And I remember he came and showed me a video, and he's like, "Did you see Makai walking?" He shows me the phone. He was like, "He's walking."
Oh my gracious!
And this is as he's leaving out of the door. And I give him a hug, and I said, I love you, be safe. And he was like, "Okay, I'll see you later." And, I hold that memory and I cherish it because who would ever think that that would be the last time I see my little brother alive?
The next day, Lamont's older sister receives an alarming call.
I'm at the gas station pumping gas. The phone rings. This guy that Lamont grew up with, he's like, "Your brother just got shot." He just got shot? Like, what do you mean he just got shot? "Oh no, your brother just got shot." And so, I started crying. I asked where it was. He said it was on Craig Street. And when I called 911, I told the operator that somebody just called me and told me that my brother was shot because they sent an ambulance. And she said the police were there. I'm praying that he's okay. Please keep the blood flowing to his heart.
I'm Jonathan Church. I'm a Deputy State's Attorney in Prince George's County State's Attorney's Office. The police get a 911 call for the shots fired on Griggs Street. And when they arrive, they find that a man was suffering from multiple gunshot wounds.
My name is Thea Zumwalt. I'm an Assistant State's Attorney in Prince George's County, Maryland. Paramedics arrived within minutes of the call. He was found between a parked car, and then the curb, and they determined that he was unresponsive.
So as soon as he is pronounced dead, homicide unit shows up. One goal is to come collect all the forensic evidence that they can find. He has his phone with him. So they do identify him as Lamont Adair. And then that starts the homicide detectives running.
The reports that they were getting was that a car drove by and was firing. So they had casings all along the road that they had to make sure that they got them all.
It was somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 fired cartridge casings, which really indicates to us that the gun was fired probably to the point of where it was empty. It was apparent based on the location of the gunshot wounds that some of those are what's called defensive wounds, where he was moving and trying to avoid being shot at, which would give you an indication that the person was walking up on him as he was firing as well.
There were several buildings to this complex, and that apartment complex did have several cameras. So they made it a priority to secure the footage for that.
They don't get to view it right away, so they're dragging in as much potential evidence as possible that might help solve, number one, what that vehicle was, and then who was in the vehicle at the time, and then who would have had a reason to do this.
And once the initial scene is secured, and in this case there was no one who committed the crime who was on scene, so they were able to secure it pretty quickly. And it was a pretty large area that they had to cordon off.
So when we got in there, they had it taped off. and wouldn't let us get to where he was. And they was, not letting me see him. No, you can't come close. I said, no, I'm going to see him. But when you deliver a baby and they cut the umbilical cord, it's still an invisible umbilical cord still there. Because you can feel one of your kids, there's something going wrong. I just think about how a waste of life it was.
Investigators discover critical clues in Lamont's final moments.
This person who shot Lamont knew him.
A surprising motive emerges.
The phrase everybody uses is the streets are talking.
There were several rumors that he was a snitch for the police.
And the killer's inner world is revealed.
He's hot-headed. He gets angry.
On 8/8/2018, this is where Lamont William Adair Jr., Tree, Monty was murdered at. Today is his 27th birthday. We miss you, Monty. Rest in peace. Baller for life.
As investigators process the scene of Lamont Adair's murder, local media race to cover the tragedy.
And whatever coward did this, I hope you caught. Turn yourself in.
So a crowd starts to gather because it's a very populated area and it's midday. There's an entire team of detectives that spread out and look at different things, knocking on every door of every apartment that had a window that oversaw where this happened, asking people's names and identification information and phone numbers. What did you see?
There really wasn't anything clear in the immediate information that the detectives received for them to go to figure out why him.
In search of leads, detectives turn back to a piece of evidence recovered from the crime scene.
When Mr. Adair is found, he has his phone with him, and the phone can be like a wealth, a treasure trove of information. They can identify who his family members are, who he is in particular, start talking with family members.
Later that evening, investigators ask Darlene about Lamont's movements that afternoon.
I told them they were living at my house. Lamont and Makai. Lamont had his room downstairs. So he was down there about maybe 2 or 3 hours playing with Makai. And then I think he got a phone call because he came upstairs and he went in the, he said, "Here, Ma, take him." He was going out to work out like he normally did, but he was meeting somebody.
What she didn't realize is what seemed like an everyday moment would be one of Lamont's last.
I don't know why, but something just told me look out the door. When I saw him walking down the street, and he was gone.
So initially, after talking to family and friends of Lamont Adair, there isn't somebody that readily stands out as a suspect because he's not involved in anything that we're aware of that would have made him a target.
Investigators then turn their focus to Lamont's online activity in the days leading up to his final moments.
There are a team of detectives checking his social media to see who he posted recently with, what he might have said, whether it was something that might have been responded to hostilely.
From what was in his phone, he lived a normal 20-something-year-old talented, handsome individual's life. I mean, he played basketball, he dated women, he loved his little boy, loved his family.
There's videos of him on Instagram, and Makai would be on his legs, around Lamont's neck, and he's up here rocking him to sleep. And he'll fall asleep like that, like laying on his head.
On August 4th, just 4 days before he was murdered, Lamont posted images from a local charity event.
Lamont did a benefit basketball game for an organization called Hoops for Peace.
Do you guys feel that basketball saves lives in our community?
Oh, yes, definitely. Can't be out on the streets, you know, as it is my fault. So if you're in the gym and versus being in the streets, you might have just messed up with it. That was for somebody else before you. You know, it's just better to be in the gym playing basketball or working out than being outside hanging with your friends.
Lamont was actually cautioning the kids about the streets not having anything for him. And so it's like, it's chilling.
He was saying, I'd rather be in the gym playing ball than to be getting somebody else's bullet or somebody shooting me.
On August 6th, 2 days before he was killed, Lamont posted this image on social media.
His reputation was that he was active in his community. He was trying to inspire others to be better people.
There really wasn't anything definitive in his phone that pointed us in any direction about who did it.
Lamont's family, however, believe his growing notoriety and recent success may have made him a target.
A lot of people were upset with Lamont because of the opportunities that he has. And we're all like, we know he was just about to go play basketball overseas, and really a lot of people were jealous of him.
He was headed to the basketball court not far from where he was shot and killed. Who was he meeting there? Were the people there that were supposed to be there? Where were the people that he was supposed to meet if they weren't there? One of the people that Lamont may have been going to play basketball with was a man by the name of Thomas.
As they process the events of August 8th, Lamont's family have grown suspicious of the friend who invited him to play ball that afternoon.
My brother did not leave the house thinking that he was going to die that day. Thomas told Lamont, let's go play basketball.
People were going around saying that Thomas set it up, which we felt that way anyway, because it was just too coincidental that you call him and tell him to come up and play.
Rumors suggest that Thomas may have coordinated with the gunman to get Lamont to Gregg Street.
If anyone were able to call him somewhere, it would be Thomas, because he trusted him.
The indication was that he was plotting to do this to Lamont. There were rumors. He knew that it was happening and they helped facilitate it.
Lamont's family have tipped off investigators to a friend who may have been involved in the murder.
Thomas was somebody who was on scene at the time of the murder. Detectives were looking at him as possibly being involved, or at least not telling what he really knew about him.
Thomas was one of the first names that I gave to the detectives. He was the one who made the call for him to come up there. He was the one who got him to come out of the house. He was the one who put Lamont in a location to be a victim of this murder.
Police actually interviewed Thomas. He came into the station and they interviewed him there to determine whether he might have been involved or what he knew.
Investigators begin by questioning Thomas about his plans for that day.
So when police talked to him, he's very quiet, trying to figure things out. You can tell he's contemplative. He had not yet met with Lamont and didn't know anything that was useful. They just didn't get any information that was usable from Thomas.
Detectives then set out to validate his version of events.
We had 6 or 7 cell phone dumps that we went through. His phone was pulled, and there was no indication that he had anything to do with the murder of Lamont Adair.
They could tell that he called Lamont up to the scene. He was the one who made the call for him to come up there. But they didn't feel like he was involved.
After clearing Thomas, detectives gain access to the footage from the housing complex that could reveal Lamont's final moments.
So when police actually pull the footage of this video camera that's on the corner of one of the apartment buildings, it does a 360-degree pan. Every couple seconds, it starts to pan away into the back through an alley to another street and then back around to the front. And we have very small snippets of it because it's rotating the entire time.
Detectives then cue the tape up to the moment in question.
At about 3:49, 3:50 that afternoon, you can see an individual who we know is Lamont Adair based on where he falls and where police find him. And then eventually you see a gray Toyota Corolla pull up. And that's when the driver's door opens and the driver jumps out of the vehicle and approaches Lamont Adair.
The video is chilling because you see the figure just fire, shooting in broad daylight, and you see Lamont get down to his knees and he's trying to fight, but he's just executed on the street in front of everybody.
And then the camera pans out of view.
When the camera returns to the scene, the final moments of the tragedy unfold.
After he had shot Lamont, he runs back to the driver's side. He can't get into the driver's side, and he hops to the back of the car. He gets in, and the car drives away. He couldn't identify any movement in the car, but we were able to determine that there was somebody else in the car at the time who was in the driver's seat because the car drove away with the defendant in the back.
But we know there's another person who witnessed the shooting, a person who slid into the driver's seat and shut the door.
To me, this person who shot Lamont knew him. I mean, it was willful, deliberate, premeditated. They wanted Lamont Adair dead.
I am Aisha Braveboy, State's Attorney for Prince George's County, Maryland. Surveillance video can be extremely helpful in identifying suspects. In this case, however, it was very, very grainy, so it was very difficult to make out the features of the suspect.
You can tell that the driver who exited the car had dreads, was an African-American male. Beyond that, there was nothing in that video that could tell us who that was. It was a very small, common car, gray in color. There was nothing unique about it. There was no way to tell the license plate.
But upon rewatching Lamont's final moments, they observe someone else who may be able to identify the killer.
So the shooting takes place right here, but in the video you actually see this maintenance worker had pulled up to the main street where the defendant's car was traveling. But you saw in the video, they saw everything. And then initially when I reviewed this video, I said to John, like, let's get this maintenance worker in.
Days later, investigators bring this eyewitness in for questioning.
How you doing, sir? I do appreciate you coming and taking the time to talk to me. I'm sure you're busy and really don't want to be involved. I just want to get some basic information from you. And what do you do over there? On the day of the shooting, you remember that day? Yeah. Can you tell me what happened?
They just let them pull up in the car because he just come pull up and start shooting.
The person that was doing the shooting, can you describe the person at all?
Right. We missed them. Lamont's 27th birthday, baller for life, celebrations of his life. This is Lamont's niece that he never met. She'll be a year old. All right, this month.
It's Calvin, a friend of Monty. Man, we miss you down here. You know, you locked more there forever. Be your family, real friends. Happy birthday, happy 27th birthday. We love you, miss you.
Happy birthday, Monty! 27th birthday!
Investigators are questioning a witness who observed Lamont Adair's final moments in hopes of identifying the shooter.
On the day of the shooting, you remember that day?
They just let them pull up in the car because he just come pull up and start shooting.
The person that was doing the shooting, Can you describe the person at all?
I don't know the person who got shot. I don't know the one who shot.
Did you see someone get out of the car?
No.
No?
No.
Can't describe anything about them?
No, because I'm scared. I don't look for nothing.
This maintenance worker, he didn't see anything.
You know, black, white, Asian.
No.
So it was a very frustrating, moment for us.
I appreciate you coming in to talk to me. I mean, of course, I wish you had more information, but I appreciate you.
The witness's failure to identify the shooter highlights a major challenge detectives are facing.
Sadly, there is an anti-snitching mentality for witnesses, and a lot of that probably is out of fear, and they've got to live with the people that may have been involved in the incident.
I understand the very real danger that people may feel if they do talk about cases. But in this particular case, it was so frustrating to see the number of people out, and nobody saw anything who could really tell us where to go.
In the face of community silence, Lamont's family decides to speak out.
The neighborhood didn't talk. So we got together as a family and we're like, well, we need to go up there and protest. We walked from the street where he was murdered all the way down to the rec center.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
The thing that mattered to me most was making sure someone opened their mouth enough to find out who did this to my brother.
Don't sit and hide behind the windows and curtains. Tell what you know. I said, today is my son, Lamont William Adair Jr. Tomorrow it could be your father, your brother, somebody you love, so you would want to tell what happened because you would want somebody to tell you what happened to your family member.
In the days following the protest, it's apparent that their message is getting through.
People had started inboxing me from seeing us on the news, from seeing us up there protesting, from us pleading with the community members to speak up.
The detectives fielded many reports from the family about what they had heard, who they heard it from, and the family was really active in trying to just find out information and funnel it to the detectives.
One rumor suggests that an incident in Lamont's past made him a target for revenge.
There were several rumors. One of them was that he was possibly a snitch for the police. That was basically that came up because he had recently, prior to this, had acquired a weed charge where he was found in a car smoking some weed.
Like most of the kids his age, Lamont has started recreational use of marijuana. I think that's the way that he, detached from his issues or problems. And he had gotten into some trouble, and they arrested him.
It seems that after the arrest, some individuals may have viewed Lamont with suspicion.
I don't believe he was in jail for very long when he had been arrested for that, and certainly some of the rumors that circulate is that if you're out quickly that you must be working with the police. And I guess the phrase everybody uses is the streets are talking. And so some of the original rumors that went around were that potential suspects could be people who weren't happy about that.
Detectives reach out to their partners in the narcotics unit.
It wasn't a big charge. There would be no reason for him to want to subject himself to the dangers of becoming a snitch to work off a weed charge.
We had no knowledge that he had been working with police on anything.
Lamont didn't tell on anybody. He took the charge, and then he put that moment behind him, and he moved forward. Like that little scare turned his life around.
It's another dead end. But then, a friend of Lamont approaches police, claiming she has knowledge about the gunman seen on the surveillance video.
You want something to drink real quick while I get my stuff?
No, I'm fine.
Say your full name, please.
Kenya had asked to talk to the detectives in charge of the case because she believed she had some information about who had done it. And that's when the case really got started.
Detectives begin by asking Kenya about her connection to Lamont.
He's
sleeping over my house, but Lamont has been my friend for so long, I would never do anything to put him in any type of harm's way.
So, explain to me, you said you believe you know a motive.
Kenya then reveals something that she previously kept secret. She and Lamont were more than just friends.
So I'm not denying that Lamont and I had anything going on.
When did you start sleeping with Lamont?
We didn't start sleeping together until like June. And that's why I'm coming here.
According to Kenya, the relationship with Lamont pushed her ex over the edge.
What makes you think that, because of everything else going on between you and him, that he would go and kill Lamont?
I really feel like he did it. He's hot-headed. He gets angry. He's a loose cannon. I feel like he did it just because of the situation. I'm worried that if he did do this, he might come after me.
Well, what would make you think he would do it?
He told me he would kill me.
On August 10th, 2018, a woman named Kenya tells investigators that her ex, Franklin Scott, may have killed Lamont Adair.
She wanted the police to know that she and Franklin Scott had a pretty tumultuous relationship consisting of several protective orders, but also 2 young children. So they were on again, off again. I believe there was allegations that he had tased her. So there was definitely a rocky relationship there. That relationship officially ended in the beginning of May of 2018.
Because he's seen that Lamont was so supportive of me. He hacked into my Snapchat and he's seen how often Lamont and I were together.
Franklin Scott was clearly obsessed with Lamont Adair and the relationship that Lamont had had with Kenya.
Frank is short. He's like 5'3", and he's always self-conscious about that. Like, you don't want me because I'm small, I'm short, you want to talk. It's so messed up that you just moved on with a basketball player.
He lost it, knowing that she ran to basically his worst nightmare, a talented, tall, good-looking guy.
It makes me cry, but I really feel like he did it.
Then she offers more details that increase the detective's interest.
What's he look like?
He's short. He's about 5'3". He has dreads.
What kind of hair does he have?
He has dreads, long dreads.
How long are they?
Maybe like,
down there?
Yeah.
He had long dreads. He matched the physical description of the person who conducted the shooting. Franklin Scott did have a prior firearms charge, so we knew from that he had access to weapons. So that also was something that we were looking at as important.
When they ask Kenya what type of vehicle he drives, she says that he used to drive a BMW and that was in the shop. She mentions that she believes he's been driving a rental vehicle, possibly a gray Toyota.
The same type of car observed in the surveillance video. Investigators then ask about her contact with Scott on August 8th.
She told police that she received a phone call from Franklin Scott the day of the murder. She was at work at the time.
He was in the car driving when I was speaking to him.
Do you remember hearing any voices? Anybody else that could have been with him?
It was somebody else with him. He has I know his voice is kind of deep but high at the same time.
She said she recognized that voice to be Elijah Wan Jackson because his voice is characteristically raspy.
It was O.J. Jackson. He had a nickname of O.J. the Shooter. He had a prior record as well.
If you had to leave right now and go find him, where would you go?
I don't know. Mom, maybe at OJ's house.
At the time, the detectives were looking everywhere for him. They put out feelers everywhere trying to track him down. But after the murder, they were already gone.
To narrow the search, they continue to focus on the vehicle spotted in the video.
It's not until Kenya kind of comes out and we find out that the suspect rented a vehicle. She mentions a gray Toyota. Eventually, they do locate the rental vehicle parked on a street in the Seat Pleasant area.
After the murder, Franklin Scott basically parked the Corolla and walked off.
A search of the car reveals bullet fragments inside. But there's no sign of the murder weapon. Then, in their quest to locate Scott, investigators recall a detail from his criminal past.
They knew that he had to report for his pending gun charge in Anne Arundel County.
Well, one of the detectives realized that Mr. Scott had a court date. And so on August 23rd, Prince George's County Police Department were sitting on the Anne Arundel County Courthouse in Glen Burnie, Maryland, waiting for Mr. Scott to show up for his court date. And it was then that they arrested him for the murder of Lamont Adair.
If he had thought that Kenya would be likely to talk, I think he wouldn't have set foot in that courthouse.
He's taken to the Criminal Investigation Division for the Prince George's County Police Department, and he asks for a lawyer, so the police never get a chance to speak to him.
Eager to collect more evidence against Scott, detectives begin monitoring his phone calls from prison.
Within the week that he was arrested, he had made some jail calls asking his acquaintance to help him get rid of his babies, which the detectives were able to determine he was talking about his guns.
Locating the weapon used in the murder would bolster the prosecution's case.
Unfortunately, they listened to the jail calls a couple days after they were made, so by the time they were able to get a search warrant and search the house, there was no indication of any firearms there.
The failure to find the weapon is a blow to the investigation.
What we had at that time was not enough. It was enough for probable cause, which got Franklin Scott to be arrested, but it wasn't enough to find him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. We knew we needed somebody involved in that moment to be able to be in court and point at Franklin Scott and say he's the one who shot repeatedly at Lamont Adair and killed him.
That man is Elijah Jackson.
If we wanted who was truly responsible for this, we had to find him. So police immediately zeroed in to track him down.
To bring the killer of Lamont Adair to justice, investigators must track down his suspected accomplice, O.J. Jackson.
I had been watching social media, and OJ was traveling. He would go to Texas or Florida, I think it was, come back. Like, he's active on his social media page.
But 16 days after the homicide, police get word that Jackson has returned to the Seat Pleasant area.
On August 24th, police find Elijah Jackson at his home, and that's when they bring him in to interview him about his involvement.
They interviewed him pretty extensively for a couple hours. At the end of the interview, he got real quiet, and the detectives asked him something, and he indicated that he wanted to talk to his mother. And his mother came in, and you saw a pretty profound exchange.
His mother tells him, you need to tell the police the truth. You don't need to be going down for this. You need to be honest.
Elijah Jackson is finally ready to provide a first-hand account of the tragic events captured by the security camera.
He made it sound like he bumped into Franklin Scott as he was walking. I think that Franklin Scott picked him up.
He hears Franklin Scott say, there he goes. The car slows down, pulls a gun out of the driver's side door, handle shoots out the window a few times, opens the door and jumps out of the car. And he says the car keeps going. And he jumps over into the driver's seat and put the brake on.
Then Jackson observed Lamont's final moment.
Scott is standing over Lamont Adair and firing. I think it all happened so fast, and it was a surprise to OJ. O.J. Jackson just wanted to get out of Dodge.
OJ indicated that he was not expecting it. However, he did get into the front driver's side seat. He was ultimately charged with accessory after the fact.
Franklin Scott accepted responsibility for what he did as well, and primarily because he knew that Olajuwon Jackson was going to offer testimony against him.
Franklin Scott pled guilty to first-degree murder. I'm pretty proud of that. It's a more certain outcome than going to trial. So I'm happy with the results.
Olajuwon Jackson is serving a 6-year sentence. Franklin Scott is serving 50 years.
The heartbreaking part about it was, if I recall correctly, the mothers knew each other from the neighborhood. That was a really profound thing to sit and observe.
I mean, I know Franklin's mother, but I hadn't seen Franklin in a long time, so I couldn't identify him from a cracked egg. I walked over, I said, how you doing? And she just started shaking and crying. My son was the one who killed your son. Of course, me, I hug her. And my kids are like, Mom, why are you hugging her? And I felt one mother to another. You know, my son is dead. Yours going away for 50 years. It's like he almost dead. But I told him, I said, I have to forgive you for the God in me. But I'll never forget what you have stole from me and my family. You took something very dear from us. Lamont, Tree, Monty. You had no right to do that. You weren't God. But you tried to play God that day.
With the murder case resolved, the family continues to process their grief and replay Lamont's final moments.
Makai had just started walking right before Lamont passed. He shows me the phone, and I'm just like trying to hold back the tears. I had a feeling about Lamont like it was the last time I was going to see him. It was very weird when I think about it, and how I felt like I had to just let him go because I was getting teary-eyed, and that was the last time I saw Lamont. Him sharing a moment from Makai being able to walk.
I wish I had offered him a ride that day. It's a lot of things you look at and you're like, you could have done differently, but yeah. No, I just, like, I think about him all the time.
You know, Lamont knew we loved him, and he loved us. And at the end of the day, nothing else matters. Go ahead.
When you look at it, the person touches like so many people, and it's disappointing because he had a bright future ahead of him.
I'm just proud of him for the man that he was and who he was trying to become, you know, for his family.
Gone too soon. Very, very hard.
I said, I love you. And that's the last words that I ever spoke to her.
We didn't know what had happened. Kelsey was just gone.
The clock's ticking.
We were just praying she's still alive.
You see a flash of a figure come up from behind her.
Kelsey's not necessarily all alone.
It's just like your heart just drops.
Just tell me where her phone is. Just where is it?
Pardon my French, it was really an oh shit moment.
May 25th, 2007. Overland Park, Kansas. 18-year-old Kelsey Smith is graduating from Shawnee Mission West High School.
I remember the day clearly when Kelsey graduated. We were very proud of her. My name is Missy Smith, and Kelsey Smith is my daughter. Her boyfriend John had an air horn, and when she walked across the stage, he had hit the air horn.
There was a lot of noise and clapping and stuff. The principal asked her, "Is that your hooligan family?" And she was laughing and said, "Yeah, that's them." I'm Greg Smith, and I'm Kelsey's dad. And I was happy that she graduated. I was happy that she hit that milestone. It was a neat night to see that.
Kelsey was born May 3rd, 1989. She was our third daughter. She was very inquisitive. She got the nickname No-No because she was always into things.
Kelsey was very, very outgoing, even at a young age. We had 5 kids. She was the middle child, so she went out of her way, I think, to be noticed.
I met Kelsey in middle school. She was very loud, and at first I thought she was kind of bossy, but like not in a bad way. I'm Megan Lang. I'm Kelsey's best friend. We were in marching band together. We both played clarinet. It was a lot of fun.
Every year, the marching band played at halftime at the football games. She took a lot of pride in that.
During her senior year, Kelsey's life changes when she meets her high school sweetheart, John.
When she first met him, she's like, "Hey, there's this guy, and he is so cute, and he's just awesome." And I was like, "Oh, cool."
John was over at our house all the time once they started dating. I mean, all the time.
They went to senior prom together.
We all got a limo. Kelsey had this big, beautiful yellow dress that looked just like the Disney Princess Belle. And we had so much fun. After graduation, Kelsey and me were super excited to go to K-State.
I had always assumed that Kelsey would go to Kansas University because John was going to KU for college. And I told my wife, "Who do you want to bet moves first? Is it going to be Kelsey or John that changes schools?"
On June 2nd, a week after her high school graduation, Kelsey is excited and getting ready for a big date.
She and John were going to go out that night. It was their 6-month anniversary, which I had no idea was a thing, but apparently when you're 18, it's a big deal. Kelsey said that she had to go to Target to get a gift for John before they went out that night. And while she was there, she talked to her mother, Missy, on the cell phone.
It was about 7 o'clock in the evening. Kelsey had called me to ask me about the gift she was looking for John. There was this scrapbook box that she wanted to find for him because she had given him a card and his mom accidentally threw it away, not knowing that it was important to him, and it really upset him. So I was explaining to her which aisle she could find this box that she was looking for at Target. She was just in a hurry to get home because she was meeting John for dinner. And then I said to her, I said, "Bye, baby. I'll see you when I get home. I love you." And that's the last words that I ever spoke to her.
A short time later, a little after 7 p.m., Kelsey's boyfriend arrives at the Smith family's home.
John came over to the house to pick her up for the date. He was so excited, but Kelsey wasn't there. Started calling and texting.
But she's just not answering, and I just knew something was bad.
A veteran police officer, Kelsey's father doesn't waste any time trying to find her.
Kelsey's older sister, Lindsay, and John got in a car and went out looking for Kelsey. In the meantime, I started calling police departments and asking, hey, have you had any accidents or traffic stops with this car or whatever? And I remember Lindsay calling and saying, hey, Dad, we found her car. It wasn't at Target. It was at Oak Park Mall across the street. Kelsey wasn't there. It was just her car.
We knew something was wrong.
And then Lindsay said, John wants to get inside and look around. I said, I don't care if you have to tackle him. Don't let him touch the car. I'm calling the police.
Patrol officers respond to the call at 10 p.m.
I'm retired Detective Sergeant Bob Miller with the Overland Park, Kansas Police Department. Kelsey's car was located on the opposite side of the mall, a good third of a mile from Target. The mall was closed, and it wasn't even parked in a parking stall. It was just kind of parked in a dark spot.
After the police met us, they immediately treated the car like it was a crime scene.
Her purse was found in the car, her cell phone and car keys were missing. The shopping bag from Target was in there, which just adds to the strangeness and the urgency of the whole thing. And then the police noticed something was hanging out of the trunk.
It was like a paper strap or something. It set off all kinds of alarm bells. My fear was she was in the trunk.
Watching them open the trunk of her car as a mom, it's just agony. I'm just sitting there holding on to Greg, and he wouldn't let me watch them open it.
But it was empty. She wasn't in there.
And then when she wasn't, you're just like, where the hell is my kid?
The car was towed to the Johnson County Sheriff's Office Crime Lab, where they started processing for fingerprints and for DNA. And then the police asked us to come down to the station to be interviewed.
I'm Detective Candace Bridges, and I work the Kelsey Smith case. When I first arrived at the station, Kelsey's family was there. Her boyfriend, John, was there as well. Everyone was on a heightened sense of alert. Kelsey was, by all accounts, a good kid. Her father, Greg, was a law enforcement officer himself, so he knew when to raise a red flag to let us know this was something serious.
They brought us into an interview room, sat us down in there, walked out, closed the door. I looked at Missy and I said, you know why we're here, right? I said, we're suspects.
The Smiths tell police that Kelsey left for Target around 6:30 p.m. and was supposed to meet John sometime after 7. But she never showed.
The timeline lets us know what she did before she went missing, which may sometimes hold the key as to why she was missing. And that became more important when we interviewed John a little bit later.
John told us Kelsey's very excited about going off to college.
But what John says next catches investigators by surprise.
John told us they were going to split up when they went to college. That's a highly emotional situation between John and Kelsey.
We asked, was she upset? Was she upset with him?
At that point, we were thinking John did something to her.
The race to find Kelsey
first 24 hours pass and you become more anxious.
Clues buried in Kelsey's final moments.
We were dumbfounded.
I just lost it. I just fell apart.
And a suspect's chilling statement.
And he goes, yeah, I saw her. She had great legs. And just my skin started crawling at that point.
Kansas police are questioning the boyfriend of a missing teen, Kelsey Smith.
At that point, we were thinking she's upset at her boyfriend, John, or John did something to her.
We asked John, did he know anything that might tell us where she had gone? We went pretty hard at John with the questioning.
Because clock's ticking.
But John says he has no idea where she is, or why she never showed up for their date that evening.
And then John showed us his phone. We were surprised. I mean, kids don't like to show their phones.
We learned that he was texting Kelsey's phone and trying to get her to answer.
We expected at least something from her saying, not now, or, something to turn him off or shut him down. But there was nothing.
To validate the story, investigators request John's cell phone records, which confirm that he was in fact waiting for Kelsey at her home at the time she went missing.
So that's pretty much what helped us clear John.
Authorities request Kelsey's cell phone records as well.
We wanted to know the last calls that Kelsey had made. Had she talked to somebody? Had somebody called her? So we set out to get her phone records. But we were told they were unavailable because they would require upper management to release them.
And as the wife of a police officer, I just found it unbelievable that I had so many obstacles. The phone was in my name. There was no reason for them to not do it. Just tell me where her phone is. Just where is it?
Next, detectives head to the site of Kelsey's last known location.
The Target store didn't open till, 10 or 11 o'clock on Sunday, the next morning.
So we called Target, and they opened the store for us and let us see the CCTV footage.
We're watching this video on the small computer screen. And we watched Kelsey. She parked and went inside.
So now we know that Kelsey did make it to Target. She was there and she was safe and going about her business, doing her shopping. We see Kelsey walk around the store, collect the items that she was purchasing.
She was on the phone with her mom. She talks to Missy for just a few more seconds, hangs up the phone.
She pays for her items, and we see Kelsey exit the store.
The video shows Kelsey walking out through the doors, and then the next view is the camera in the corner of the parking lot near where her car is parked.
The outside video shows Kelsey walking to her car, putting her items in the passenger side door, and getting in the driver's side door. Then she drives away.
And that's the last time you see the car.
Everything looked normal, just business as usual.
But investigators can't rule out something more sinister.
We couldn't say for sure that we had a missing person taken against their will, or if we just had a young lady who wasn't ready to be found yet.
Will this fleeting glimpse of Kelsey offer any clues to help find her?
We went on with the investigation because we had a girl to find. At the time, the family had already started searching the neighborhood.
We still have no idea where Kelsey is, and that was a really scary feeling. That first day, we all took out flyers and hung them around businesses, going door to door and searching.
Hundreds of volunteers will set out again today, passing out flyers looking for Kelsey.
I kind of just went on autopilot. I was also mostly running on energy drinks and no sleep, and it was a mess.
While the search for Kelsey continues, detectives are busy following up on their next lead.
The next morning, when the Macy's store opened, we obtained their video footage of the parking lot where Kelsey's car had been found late the previous evening. It is VHS tape, so it was pretty poor quality.
It's so grainy and it's dark, and the only light in the picture is the low watt lighting in the parking lot. And then a little bit after 9 p.m., you see the headlights of Kelsey's car coming in and then parks in the dark. Then you see the door open, a figure that you can't exactly make out gets out of the car and walks away.
We could tell that it wasn't Kelsey that got out of that car and walked off camera. You could just see the way they walked. It wasn't the gait of a teenage girl.
Investigators believe the figure is male.
So that was a surprise to us. We were dumbfounded.
After Kansas teenager Kelsey Smith goes shopping, she never returns home to her family.
It wasn't considered officially an abduction or a missing person. It's just she hadn't come back. Suspicious circumstances. I remember in the morning, after the first day that she was missing, I remember getting up and going in the shower, and I just lost it. I just fell apart. That was really hard. It wasn't readily apparent what had happened to Kelsey.
But the day after her disappearance, investigators observed something disturbing. Surveillance footage of an unidentified man parking Kelsey's car 2 hours after she went missing.
So we knew right away that kind of ingrains an acquired sense of suspicion.
Authorities then give added scrutiny to the footage that may contain Kelsey's final moments, in search of any sign of the male figure seen driving Kelsey's car.
My boss was a big tech guy, so we had a big command center with all these big Proxima projectors, and you could blow it up on a wall that was 15 by 12.
Rather than viewing it on a CCTV screen, which is a smaller screen, this time we watched it again with a different perspective. She goes through the store, she comes out the doors, and she's walking to her car. She puts her items in the passenger door and then walks around the back of her car.
We expected to see her get in the car, back out, and drive away, just like what we had seen on that small computer screen. Then, just a split second before she shut the door, you saw it flash. The second you saw that flash on the video, I felt that rush, the room got very hot.
At that moment, I believe all of us stopped breathing. You could have heard a pin drop. I remember turning to someone and saying, "Did you see what I saw?" As Kelsey's opening her driver's side door, you see a flash of a figure. wearing a white shirt and dark colored pants, come up from behind her. It's very small. It's very hard to see. It's blurry. We believe the blurry figure was forcing Kelsey into her car. We then knew this was much more serious than we thought.
Pardon my French, it was really an oh shit moment. At that point, we realized we had an abduction.
But police still need to figure out who abducted her and why. By piecing together the collection of Kelsey's final moments, investigators hope to uncover what happened.
We went back to the inside Target video and watched it again to see if we could spot anybody wearing a white shirt and dark colored pants.
We literally watched everything frame by frame. I forget how many hours of footage Target gave us. Hundreds. It was overwhelming.
What we discovered is Kelsey's not all alone inside the store. She's being watched. When Kelsey enters the frame, shortly after you see this male enter the frame behind her, and this happens repeatedly. Every time Kelsey walks down an aisle, you see him walk down the aisle. He's watching her.
You've seen the National Geographic shows where the predator is circling. That's what you see. You see the suspect looking, and he walks past the aisle where Kelsey's at, and he locks. I mean, his head snaps, and he locks. Unfortunately, Kelsey's preoccupied. She's talking on the phone, and she's just not aware of what's going on. He sees Kelsey move towards the checkout lane.
As Kelsey's paying, he exits the store.
The camera angle's perfect as he's walking out the door.
You can tell he's in his 20s. He's got a goatee. At that point, we knew we wanted to identify this person.
I remember Greg and I going to the command center and them showing us the footage.
Once the video actually revealed that it was a kidnapping, it was just like your heart just drops.
The only thing that was really going through my mind was, he knows where my child is. I needed them to find him so I could find her. We were just praying that she's still alive.
An officer, racked by guilt, vows to make amends.
I was only 600 feet away when she was kidnapped.
And Andy thinks that he should have been able to stop it. He's hundreds of yards away.
Critical clues across state lines.
Captain Fredrickson said, you need to brace yourself.
I was shocked, and I think all of us were kind of panicked at that point.
Leading to an explosive encounter with their prime suspect.
He was livid. And that's when he screamed in my face. He said, this is all you got?
After combing through surveillance footage, investigators identify a suspicious white male who is following Kelsey Smith and may have even kidnapped her.
Once we identified our suspect, we went to the media to help us find him.
Police are chasing hundreds of leads looking for this man, a person of interest, they say, seen on the same store camera leaving Target moments before Kelsey.
I was shocked, and I think all of us were kind of panicked at that point.
As Kelsey's story quickly becomes national news, one local in the community is working hard to help find her.
I'm Officer Andy Black of the Overland Park, Kansas Police Department. I was the liaison officer for Oak Park Mall, and on the day of this case, I was actually working there off duty. The evening Kelsey disappeared, I was doing the habit of smoking a cigar, taking a break outside the corner of the building, and that's when it happened. I was only 600 feet away when she was kidnapped.
And Andy thinks that he should have been able to stop it. Now, he's hundreds of yards away. Nobody anywhere expects him to see what's going on and be able to intervene. But to this day, I think he still blames himself.
It weighs heavy on me. I just wish we would have caught him.
Plagued by guilt and determined to find Kelsey, Officer Black volunteers to work the tip line.
As soon as the suspect comes on the TV and throws up the 800 number, we're overwhelmed with a huge amount of calls, but the majority of them weren't valid.
As calls continue to come in, one tip stands out.
We got multiple calls on an individual by the name of Edwin Hall. That name went into the log of all the other names that we had gathered from the TIPS hotline to track down and investigate. The first thing that we do whenever we got a name is we see if we can find a driver's license photo of that person so that we can indeed verify if they match the description of who we're looking for. And Edwin very much matched the description of the person from the Target video. So Edwin Hall was put to the top of the list. He was a local resident with a couple of different addresses on file. We ended up going to an old address that he no longer lived at. So we couldn't find him.
But law enforcement soon homes in on another suspect.
We got several calls calling in to say that that individual resembled someone they knew by the name of Jack. As you can imagine, just having the name Jack in a metro of over 1 million people, that's not necessarily going to be your best lead to track down.
Authorities have 2 potential suspects, but can't track either one of them down. Then, on June 6th, 3 days after Kelsey's kidnapping, investigators catch a break when another tip comes in to Officer Andy Black.
I got a call from a lady, and she said, I know that guy. She told me that he went by the name of Jack, and he lived in the city of Olathe.
Once authorities receive Jack's address, they immediately head to his home. When they arrive, they're surprised by what they find.
As they pulled up, they see this person packing boxes into the back of this vehicle, looking like they're getting ready to leave.
The man confirms that his name is indeed Jack, and tells detectives that he was just getting ready to leave with his wife and 4-year-old son on a trip.
We didn't want to take the chance that he was going to skip town.
So at this point, the suspect actually willingly comes into the station.
With the clock ticking, authorities now only hope that they've caught the right suspect.
I got a phone call from my boss saying, hey, this guy, Jack, he's coming in for an interview. I need you back here now. So we were beelining back to the station.
Four days after the abduction of Kansas teenager Kelsey Smith, authorities track down a 26-year-old suspect named Jack. When questioned, he reveals something surprising.
As he's being interviewed by investigators, he admits that he goes by the name Jack. That is his nickname that he's given himself.
And then he gave his birth name, Edwin Hall. So that was a surprise to us.
investigators realize that Edwin Hall is the same person that the tip line had received numerous calls about, and that detectives have been trying to track down.
It all started falling into place as to this was our person that we were looking for.
And then that's when they started with some very pointed questions.
Detective Miller shows Edwin a picture of Kelsey in order to gauge his reaction.
Edwin denied ever seeing Kelsey, but then we showed him the surveillance footage, and at that time he said he's the guy on the video.
While Edwin acknowledges going to the store, he insists he's never seen Kelsey.
So he offered up DNA, fingerprints, anything he could do to help eliminate himself, which was quite surprising. And the county took those fingerprint cards and his DNA swabs.
Despite Hall's willingness to provide evidence, Detective Miller persists.
We went back in, and I basically just put her picture on the table. It was the picture of Kelsey inside Target. And I mentioned to Edwin, I said, so you never saw her? Very attractive young lady, you know. I'd give her a second look, you know, so I kind of went locker room talk with him, and he bit. And he goes, oh yeah, okay, I saw her. She had great legs. And just my skin started crawling at that point.
He claimed he noticed Kelsey, thought she was pretty, and watched her, but then also claimed he left and never saw her again, doesn't know what happened to her.
And I said, now you're saying you saw her. Why didn't you tell us that before?
But a smug Edwin refuses to answer. In order to charge him, Detective Miller needs more evidence.
I knew he was lying, but he was going to be let go.
In the meantime, investigators catch an unexpected break when a waitress calls the tip line, saying she recognized the man's picture on the news.
She called the police and said, that's the guy. That's the guy that was bothering me in the restaurant. The suspect, he went in there before he kidnapped Kelsey, and he was being real rude to the waitress that really upset her, and the manager asked him to leave the store.
Then the man leaves without paying his bill.
And he did like a dine and dash.
Upon hearing the news, Detective Miller immediately notifies his suspect.
I told Edwin, we're holding on to you. We're gonna book you for the theft. And so they took him downstairs where he was being booked. And Edwin was literally in custody and laughing at us. He said, this is all you got? This is ridiculous. I'll be out in 48 hours.
Meanwhile, across town, investigators are following up on a critical new lead.
As soon as Kelsey was reported missing, we immediately started requesting her cell phone records from the wireless carrier, but we were told they were unavailable. We continued to request the records, but it was 3 days before we got them. Once we did finally get her cell phone records, what we saw was the texts that John was sending to Kelsey's phone the evening she went missing. Those texts pinged off of the cell phone towers and proved to be a road map. We tracked Kelsey's cell phone pings down the highway in Kansas and into the Missouri side of the metro area. The final ping on her phone was in a wooded area known as Longview Lake. It's a public park where people go to, hike and walk their dogs. And so that's where we concentrated our search for her.
45 minutes into their search, they make a gruesome discovery when they find a female body that was hidden from view.
She was covered with branches. Her clothes had been taken off. She had a nylon belt around her neck. It appeared as if she'd been strangled with that belt.
Although they'll need a DNA test to be sure, the body fits Kelsey's physical description.
Then we realized that she's been the victim of a homicide. So now we go into full investigative mode of building our case.
Investigators have just discovered the body of a young woman, matching the description of missing teen Kelsey Smith. The Overland Park police then alert Kelsey's family.
We got a phone call that day on June 6th about 2 o'clock in the afternoon that said, hey, we need to come talk to you guys from the police. And I said, okay. So we met him out in the driveway as soon as they got to the house.
Captain Fredrickson said, you need to brace yourself.
They told us that they'd recovered Kelsey and that she was dead.
And I just started screaming, not my Kels, not my Kels. But it was my Kels.
DNA testing later confirms the family's worst fears. The victim is Kelsey Smith.
Once we realized that she's been the victim of a homicide, we knew that we had a very viable suspect in Edwin Hall, who was being interviewed by investigators at the same time.
Shortly after getting the news that Kelsey's body has been discovered, the lab sends Detective Miller some pressing new evidence.
When Edwin was on his way out to the county jail for the theft, I had to run down to the car and stop him. They matched his thumbprint on the back of the driver's seatbelt buckle in Kelsey's car. I let Edwin know that he was now going to be charged with kidnapping and murder. And that's when he screamed in my face. He was livid.
The next few days were just a blur. We were heartbroken, but there was also kind of relief that we had actually found her.
After Edwin is arrested, the examination of Kelsey's body revealed that she had been sexually assaulted. They ruled the cause of death as being by strangulation. Edwin was charged with murder in the first degree. He was also charged with rape and sodomy. It wasn't until a year and a half later that we go to trial. Edwin decides to plead guilty to the charges in order to avoid the death penalty.
As part of the plea, Hall agrees to answer some lingering questions.
It was a long time coming for the family to learn what happened to Kelsey during her last moments that night. What he told us was that after he sees Kelsey, then from that moment on, he was hunting her.
We ended up finding out it was kind of a violent takeover. He rushes in with this pistol and shoves it in the back of her neck. And his words to her was, if you cooperate, I won't harm you. I just need you to drive me.
A terrified Kelsey complies, not realizing her life would soon come to an end.
Edmund Hall was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole.
Justice had been served. I'm very grateful to everybody that worked the case because they all did a great job.
With the murder case behind him, Greg will forever cherish the time he spent with his daughter just hours before she disappeared.
June 2nd, 2007 started out as a fantastic day. I had all the kids and we went to a festival every year called Old Shawnee Days. So we spent the day there riding the rides. Kelsey had convinced us to get on the Ferris wheel. And her sister, Lindsay's like screaming and covering her face. Kelsey would turn around and look at me and just laugh. And so, we had a great time. And so that was the last trip. That was the last time we were all together before she was killed.
As for Megan, she'll always miss her best friend.
Getting married was really hard without Kelsey. And literally right before I walked down the aisle, Missy brought me this little charm thing to hang on my bouquet that had pictures of me and Kelsey on either side. And then I ugly cried really hard. She's like, no, don't do that. So she was definitely incorporated.
Missy will always be grateful for the moment she shared with Kelsey just before she disappeared.
And I was fortunate enough to talk to Kels. She was at Target. She's getting this gift for John. I said, I love you. And that's the last words that I ever spoke to her.
Sometimes I just wish I could talk to her.
I miss her. I know she knows that we miss her.
It is so risky to try to make a living with art, but Jordy was compelled to create.
Jordy was always chill. I've never seen her upset, but towards the end, you could see the darker stuff come out.
When she didn't show up, her mother knew something was wrong. It was enough to drive her to file a missing persons report.
I actually located a steak knife in the bushes. I just remember thinking, holy crap.
We want to talk to you about it, get your side of everything.
We were just horrified something like this could happen to somebody like Jordy.
Once I made the connection with the glasses being hers, I started thinking that there's a lot more to this than just a missing person.
Your fear is you're not going to find her alive.
Spring 2016, St. Augustine, Florida. A picturesque seaside town with a thriving art community. Jordy Hudson is in her element, fresh off a successful art show.
She stood out from everybody else. She was always into what her passion was, art. Me liking art and her being an artist, I kind of looked up to Jordy. Always nice, genuine person. Way chill, way mellow.
Her work was different than most anything I'd ever seen. It was very visceral. Jordy put her heart and soul into it.
It was real and it was genuine, and an original.
Jordy came from a family of artists and from an early age had a strong persona.
She was just one of those people that just was very confrontational. It was evident in her personality. It was evident in her art.
She was tattooed. She was real punk looking.
She was always on the fringe. She was always out to make a statement. A leader, never a follower.
In 1985, at just 15 years old, Jordy attends the University of North Carolina School of the Arts. After that, the School of the Museum of Arts in Boston. And by her early 20s, her art is exhibited in galleries across the country.
It is so risky to try to make a living with art. But Jordy was compelled to create.
But Jordy's success is not without its struggles.
Jordy had meningitis, and possibly as far back as her college days. She had issues of lightheadedness. She had some serious muscular problems to the point where she literally could not walk or talk.
Jordy was sick for a long time. I knew that she was on some type of medication.
In 2012, when Jordy is 42, she moves from Milledgeville, Georgia, to an apartment in St. Augustine, Florida, to be closer to her mother, Judy.
Jordy's mother was a big support for her. Her mother was her caretaker, driving her around and handling her medications, which were numerous.
St. Augustine turns out to be the perfect place for Jordy to continue working on her art.
It literally is an artist's hangout. It has quite a vibe to it.
St. Augustine's always been a pretty artsy town. Way back when, there was a kind of a big hippie scene.
In late summer 2012, Jordy's success hits a setback after her health takes a near-fatal turn.
She could not speak that clearly. She talked about having had dizzy spells. She was having to use a cane at some point, so she was having a very difficult time with this meningitis. Her illness brought out some rawness, some real heart, real emotion in her artwork.
She put her illness into her work. You could see the darker stuff come out, and it stuck out. And I believe that's because of her illness. Jordy only mentioned her illness 1 or 2 times throughout the time I knew her. She wouldn't let that hold her down.
I just think that her having this fatal disease couldn't help but influence her. I own a gallery called Space 8 here in St. Augustine, and I gave Jordy her show in 2012. That whole exhibition was under the context of her dying soon, like very soon. In advance of the show, we always get media coverage, and at the time, there's a publication called Folio magazine. They were sent to cover her and talk about her art.
Very first meeting, Jordy was one of those people that was memorable in so many ways. I photographed Jordy at her studio. She was in bad shape. They're not pleasant, happy photos. She was in a difficult time of her life, so we tried to reflect that. This cover shot, I didn't direct her. She was so good in front of the camera, and she would just bare her soul to me. She was a dream subject, somebody that wears their feelings on their sleeve out for all to see.
She had a teardrop tattoo under one eye. That was the only tear that could come out of that eye because she had no more tear duct. Just sad.
It's so striking that it was hard to take a photo that didn't mean something when you take a photo of Jordy. She was a very genuine and heartfelt person. When I was leaving, she said she wanted to give me a gift. She insisted that I take this medallion and to treasure it still.
This issue of Folio Weekly is released in November 2012. Jordy's friends and family believe this will be her final art show.
Because we got so much press and because the story was so unique and compelling, it drew a big crowd. People were very excited about it. She was literally on her deathbed leading up to the show, during the exhibition. And I think it was just really emotional for her to get the acknowledgement for her art, not her, illness.
And soon, perhaps motivated by the show and the feature, Jordy's health improves.
It had gone into remission. I remember being surprised and being, happy that she beat it.
Over the years with Jordy, we would run into each other, would talk, and it's normally only about her art.
Here's an artist who apparently was recovering, who was getting stronger. She was back on the upswing.
She had that attitude that I'm totally comfortable with what we're doing, and she was great.
Jordy was just thriving and creating art and in not letting her illness drive her.
On Monday, April 11th, 2016, Jordy doesn't show up for her weekly visit with her mother, Judy. That causes Judy to become concerned.
Jordy Hudson would stop by her mother's place on a regular basis to pick up a stipend for rent or for food. When she didn't show up, her mother knew something was wrong.
When 3 days go by with no word from Jordy, Judy contacts the St. Augustine police.
At first, we weren't really concerned. We get calls all the time. My wife didn't show back up home. She hasn't been home all weekend. And come Monday, she shows back up because she's, been out partying.
I wasn't sure if she was just hanging out at someone's house, never came home.
But with these kind of investigations, we have to turn over every rock. We started looking at police reports and hospitals to locate Jordy.
The day Judy reports Jordy missing, Sergeant Etheridge responds to an unrelated call at 88 Cedar Street in St. Augustine.
The homeowner had called and said he had seen somebody's personal effects in his driveway, some blood on the sidewalk, and he wanted to make sure that nothing had occurred, that no one was hurt or injured.
When I went up there, I started talking to the homeowner. He showed me a pair of glasses, and where the blood drops were, they were right on the edge of out by the road on the driveway, close to the fence. Took, some samples for evidence, just in case something came up of it at a later time. I went and collected the pair of glasses and brought it back to the police department.
When he returns, Sergeant Etheridge continues reviewing Jordy's case and makes a disturbing connection thanks to the photo of Jordy that Judy had given to the police department.
The photo she provided had Jordy in dark frame glasses.
I scrutinized the photos a little bit more. I was able to see the hinge on the glasses detailed, and I compared them to what I had in my hand, and it was a dead ringer for the glasses in her photo. Once I made the connection with the glasses being hers, I started thinking there's a lot more to this than just a missing persons.
We're thinking maybe she had gotten into a scuffle, something like that had possibly occurred.
Investigators work to identify Jordy's final moments.
I watched the video surveillance. I knew she was definitely with somebody that night, and that was our first break.
Last time I saw her was when she walked out the door. No idea that would have been the last time.
And using every tool in their arsenal, they focus on finding answers.
There was video surveillance directly in the area where the blood was located. How did we get so lucky?
It was when we showed her the picture, she realized that we knew what we were talking about and that she needed to fess up.
The day Jordy Hudson is reported missing, detectives have discovered her glasses in the yard of a home in St. Augustine, Florida.
Myself and Detective Wachka went back out to 88 Cedar Street and started really doing a lot of more detailed search.
Not too long into the search, we discovered a large amount of blood in the bushes.
There was a significant amount of blood. It wasn't just somebody tripped and fell. It was a lot of arterial spray on the bamboo, on the fence, and, puddles of blood.
There was enough blood that we realized something definitely bad had happened to Jordy. I was starting to look through the underbrush. As I was moving it apart with my hands, I actually located a steak knife in the bushes. I just remember thinking, holy crap. One of the first things that we did is we went to Jordy's house. I looked around to see, was there a struggle? Did something happen? Is furniture overturned? To see if any items are missing. But nothing seemed out of place.
As detectives are leaving Jordy's home, they run into her neighbor, Fred Stanley.
While we were at Jordy Hudson's house, Fred Stanley was trying to get our attention. We walked out to him, started talking to him. We asked him, hey, when's the last time you've seen Miss Hudson? And he goes, well, we were at the Giggling Gator bar the prior weekend, which was the 9th of April. She was supposed to show up at her mom's house the Monday after the time she was at the Giggling Gator, and she never showed up. That, in turn, led us to go to the Giggling Gator to try to get video that night of who she was talking with, who she might have left with, and just any information that could show us where she might be.
Detectives head straight to the Giggling Gator, which is just half a mile from 88 Cedar Street, where police located Jordy's glasses and the knife the day after she went missing.
The Giggling Gator is basically like a dive bar. We've been there for just various, calls for service, fights, or whatever.
I worked at the Gator off and on for about 12 years. We do get a lot of tourists, but at the end of the night, it's usually people we already know. The police. I was at work, and they came in and said Jordy was missing. You feel worried. And you wonder, if they're safe or not. The next question is, what's your involvement with Jordy? I'm just a bartender, and she's a patron.
With any investigation, one of the first things we start looking for is video surveillance. And I personally knew the Giggling Gator had a lot of video surveillance from previous cases that I'd worked.
The detectives are in luck. They're met with a treasure trove of video. They scroll back in time to Saturday, April 9th, hoping the video will shed light on Jordy that night.
There was no audio with the video surveillance from the Giggling Gator, so we have to try and put our mind in interpreting what the video is telling us.
The Giggling Gator was a little bit hectic. I noticed a couple of males that were in the back of the bar arguing.
They continue scanning through the video second by second. At 1:36 a.m., they spot Jordy. And she is wearing the glasses police found at 88 Cedar Street.
I was working that night, and she came in. She said hello. First thing I asked, how you doing? What can I get you? You could tell that her spirit was up. Jordy was having a decent night, a good night.
They also see Fred Stanley, her neighbor.
I could see Jordy come into the bar and that Fred was following her in. They ended up hanging out, having a couple of shots. And after a while, it looked like they got into a verbal argument. And Jordy seemed very upset and agitated.
You're just trying to figure out what was the incident between Mr. Stanley and Jordy?
It kind of looked like Fred was trying to get her to leave and she didn't want to go. Eventually, Fred left the bar and Jordy stayed and continued to have a couple more shots.
The argument caught on video leads detectives to wonder whether Jordy's neighbor, Fred Stanley, may be responsible for her disappearance.
We watch Fred leave the bar and walk down the street. He was never in any of the other video surveillance that would indicate he came back to do anything to Jordy.
By looking at the video, you can eliminate people or you can include people. And in this case, with Mr. Stanley, it excluded him.
Jose tells investigators he didn't notice anything unusual inside the bar that night.
I remember actually taking a break. I'll have a cigarette. Jordy is playing her new pieces and stuff. She did mention, some of my stuff could be dark. she asked questions like, are you into that type of work? And I told her I'm very open-minded. Just have to see it and see if I like it or not. So I remember when I said that, she smiled and she said, that's cool. Maybe you should come check out my new work. That's when I agreed to do it. You know, like, okay.
Jose doesn't know that these will be his final moments with his friend.
Last time I saw her was when she walked out the door. I just remember her saying, I'm going to go hang out with some people. I expected to see her later on that week. No idea that would have been the last time.
As the detectives continue watching surveillance footage, something catches their eyes.
We saw the outside surveillance cameras, a large male and a couple other guys taking their shirts off like they were going to fight.
I remember there was altercation. There was an incident with two guys outside that I had to take care of. The bigger guy, I remember grabbing him and, you know, giving him a bear hug and trying to pull him back. He was a little bit bigger than me, intimidating. You know, the tattoos, the size of them. It was the first time and last time I saw that guy.
The large male was covered in tattoos. One was a big giant sword and head tattoos. After that fight kind of dispersed is when you see Jordy walk outside and begin conversing with this large white male with the tattoos.
They didn't seem like they were having issues, Jordy and the male. We noticed two of the males walk off with her.
The glasses were on her face when she left the bar at 3 o'clock in the morning. And then as of Monday morning, those glasses were in the driveway next to blood.
Whoever the men seen walking off with Jordy are, they are now suspects in her disappearance.
I knew she was definitely with somebody that night, that something had happened, and that was our first break.
Your fear is you're not going to find her alive.
On April 15th, 2016, a day after Jordy Hudson's mother reported her missing, investigators have found surveillance video of her leaving the Giggling Gator bar with two unidentified men.
We saw the outside surveillance cameras, and we saw her leaving with those two individuals.
Watching the video surveillance, I knew Jordy, but nobody else had a name. I had no clue how we were going to figure that out. It's during the time that I'm watching the video surveillance that one of the bartenders says he recognizes one of the males and knows his name, Trinity Boykin. Trinity had gotten into the fight with the man that Jordy had left with. Trinity was not a suspect only because we saw Trinity leave, and he didn't leave with Jordy. So when the bartender told me that he knew Trinity Boykin from the video surveillance, that was my first clue that, okay, maybe he can have some other names for the other subjects. My goal at that point was to get him in to talk to him. When I ran Trinity through our police database, I had his information, his telephone number.
Detective Ochkai contacts Trinity and asks him to come in the following day for an interview.
So when Trinity comes in for the interview, we told him, you're possibly a witness and we just want to know the information that you know. He tells me that he had a history with Harry, which was the guy's name that he gave us.
Trinity does not know Harry's last name.
He tells me that they ended up arguing over an ex of Harry's that Trinity was now friends with. Trinity didn't like the way that Harry had treated her, and so it came to blows outside. But he says, I left and I haven't seen Harry since. So at that point, we just start figuring out a way we can find Harry. This is somebody that we needed to track down and talk to.
As they work on identifying Harry, investigators are also trying to learn more about Jordy's movements on the night she disappeared.
At this point, we decide to look to see if we could find more video surveillance of Jordy after she left the Giggling Gator.
We weren't sure where they went, but we had some idea because the investigators had found blood on the scene on Cedar Street.
We hit every road and house in that neighborhood looking for video to see if we can see them.
There's a lot of bed and breakfasts back there because there's some historic homes. If you had a B&B, you certainly would have had some security.
One of the Airbnbs had a pretty good video surveillance system that had night vision that was pointed pretty much directly in the area where the blood was located. We were like, how did we get so lucky?
Investigators immediately begin reviewing the footage, hoping it will show what happened to Jordy on the night of April 9th.
It's very time consuming because you're watching the video frame by frame, minute by minute, at the same time as it's actually live. You don't want to speed through it because you can miss something.
Though the footage is grainy, they spot two individuals walking down Cedar Street at nearly 3 a.m., shortly after Jordy left the Giggling Gator.
When we picked them up on video, that third subject was no longer with them, and it would just appear to be Jordy and this large white male with tattoos on Cedar Street.
Two people got to one spot. You can clearly see them walking down the street. You're like, okay, this is going to get me somewhere good. We're getting closer to it, finding out what happened on Cedar Street.
They're talking, and then at one point, they were walking down into more shadows across the street where we located the blood. And now they look agitated. They look upset. They look like they're arguing.
The headlights of an oncoming car illuminate what happens next.
You see what appears to be an upward motion with the male's hands as if he's stabbing the female. And the next thing you see is she's on the ground and he's dragging her body into the driveway. We had no clue that that's what we were going to recover, that it was going to actually be a video of her being stabbed and then tossed over the fence. And we were just shocked.
Detectives in St. Augustine, Florida have uncovered home security video that captures Jordy Hudson's horrific final moments.
I watched that video, and you can see him pick her up and throw her on the ground several times, and then finally at one point he picks her up and throws her over a little white picket fence and just walks away like nothing had happened. The difficult part was there's no ifs, ands, or buts in my mind. I was watching Jordy get murdered.
The police, they came and said Jordy had been murdered. That'll hit you hard. You'll stand back and look at it. I can't imagine it. It's shocking. Felt sad about her, losing her, knowing that I'm probably one of the last people to talk to Jordy. It made me think, okay, this is the last place she was at. What happened to her? Could I had maybe 5 more minutes of conversation? Could I had changed the whole night? That runs through my mind, what could I have done for this been prevented?
Well, everybody was shocked that could happen here. We were just horrified trying to figure out how something like this could happen, especially to somebody, like Jordy. I mean, just unthinkable that somebody could do that to somebody that's so vulnerable.
Now I need to do everything in my power to find where she is so I can at least give her mom that closure that she needs to be able to bury her daughter.
Despite the poor quality of the video, police are able to determine the man who killed Jordy is the same tattooed man who was seen leaving the bar with her.
He had a very distinct tattoo of a cross, and you can barely see it because, again, the quality of the video is not good, but it was good enough that you could see that tattoo on Cedar Street, and it matched the tattoo that he had from the Giggling Gator.
Detectives have only been able to identify the suspect as Harry and have no way to track him down. They turn back to the surveillance to see if they've missed anything.
At about 6:30 in the morning, we see a car pull up directly in front of 88 Cedar Street, and the back door opens up.
2 people exit the vehicle. Detectives recognize the first as Harry, but they can't identify the woman who is with him.
We could tell that the female that was with him was very short. She did not appear to be taller than the car.
You can tell that she's acting as the lookout.
You can see Harry lift up what we believe was Jordy over the fence and put her in the back seat of the car. He gets back in the driver's seat. The female with him gets back in the passenger seat, and they drive off heading eastbound on Cedar Street.
When the car leaves, as it drives by, you're doing everything you can to maybe get some identifiers to the vehicle. We could tell from the video that it was either dark blue in color, possibly black.
As they're watching the video, one of the detectives states he believes the car is a Nissan Versa.
We were like, there's no way. Like, we can't figure that out just by a video. And he was like, I'm telling you right now, I recognize the taillights and the headlights. It's going to be that car.
If they can identify the owner of the vehicle, it could lead them to Harry.
I'm trying to go frame by frame and get any information and get that tag number. We had a couple more tools in place that could enhance video, help us get that tag number. One of the guys that works there, he's great with video. He can do some stuff with video that's amazing. We aren't lucky enough. We were able to identify that tag number. At that point, they were able to identify the last name of somebody that owned vehicle matching that description.
We were able to pull up the license tag.
The vehicle comes back to a woman named Judith Branson. A quick search reveals she has a son named Harry. Investigators now have their suspect's full name: Harry Branson.
After we got the last name Branson, we were able to pull Harry's police record. And fortunately for us, when somebody goes to jail, they take pictures of all their tattoos. And the one tattoo that stood out with Harry's police record was a very big cross on the front of his chest and his skull tattoos on his head.
From the size, the height, the weight, everything else with the tattoos, he was easily identifiable.
Now, knowing his name, there actually is a way we can find him.
St. Augustine police identify Harry Branson as the suspect in the murder of Jordy Hudson. They can't find him, but they do get hold of his mother, Judith.
She told us she knew nothing of what had occurred. She had woken up the next morning and her car was where it was supposed to be and she had gone to work. And all of us believed she didn't know what her son had done.
Miss Branson wasn't aware that he had taken her car, and at first she's like, no, that's not him, because we showed her a picture of him. the large tattoos all over his body and the head tattoos. And eventually she's like, yeah, that's my son, Harry. And she agreed to let us go through her car to see if we could find any evidence. We opened up the doors and we saw a lot of reddish brown staining that appeared to be blood. At that point, we sealed the car up and it was transported to the evidence text to go through and see if we can find anything.
At that point, Branson knew we were on to him. He found out the police were talking to his mother, and he ran.
Detectives believe their best lead to Harry may be the woman seen in the surveillance video with him, but they still have not been able to identify her.
We started looking for females that he could be associated with.
They discover police recently responded to a domestic dispute at Branson's residence. The victim in the report is his girlfriend, Christine Thomas.
We discovered that Christine Thomas was very short. She was like 4'11", and she matches the height description when she was standing next to the car.
So Christine's brought in for an interview.
And your name?
Christine.
Christine.
Do you know who I'm talking about when I say Harry?
Harry Branson.
Yeah.
We have had an on-again, off-again relationship since I got here in January.
Have you ever been to Cedar Street here in town? Do you know where Cedar Street is?
No.
I'm going to tell you that we have several videos from Cedar Street, or Friday night into Saturday morning, with a female that looks very similar.
It's you. Okay. I want to know why I have you at Cedar Street on film.
I don't even know where Cedar Street is.
She definitely is not being cooperative. There were quite a few questions that she totally lied.
That video shows you and Harry, okay, on Cedar Street.
And I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm telling you, Saturday morning, we have several surveillance cameras.
It's having to be pulled out of her instead of telling the truth.
This is Jordy.
Yeah, because I've never seen the lady in my life.
It was when we showed her the picture of the Versa and her standing there next to it on the passenger side is when she realized that, we knew what we were talking about and that she needed to fess up.
Would you share with me what the first thing out of your mouth was when he called you? So you said to him, what the fuck happened? What did he tell you?
Harry said, hey, we need to go check this girl I got into a fight with. She tried to rob me. So they drove down to Cedar Street where the incident occurred.
All of a sudden, she pulled a knife on him. Well,
Pulled a knife on
Harry.
On Harry? Okay.
So he either went like that and pushed her, or whatever, and I guess she flew over a fence.
Branson put Jordy's body in the back seat of their car. They drove out to County Road 13, and he ended up burying her body.
On April 19th, 10 days after Jordy Hudson's final moments were caught on video, detectives arrest Christine Thomas. That same day, they finally tracked down Harry Branson.
Branson had been on the run. He was hiding maybe a half a mile away in a little creek behind some people's houses.
Lucky for us, we were able to get the U.S. Marshals involved, and they were able to get him in custody.
On the way back to the station, Branson says he wants to talk.
What happened?
I about got in a fight at the Giggling Gator.
Mm-hmm.
And the people I was with took cabs and left.
As an investigator, one of the greatest things that we can do with a suspect is let them talk. So instead of interrupting him, we let him tell his whole story, because eventually the evidence is going to prove otherwise.
It was the girl and some guy. They said they was going to give me a ride home.
Okay.
But we had to walk back through the neighborhood to go get the car.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing I know, we walk around the corner and both of them pull out knives on me. Started saying, empty your pockets.
He stated that to protect himself, he ended up killing her. He was scared, he was frightened, he didn't mean to do it.
The guy hauled ass.
Okay.
He just dipped out.
After Branson was completely finished with the story, the decision was made that we would let him know we had video surveillance. Once I told him we had video surveillance of the whole crime, he put his head down, closed his eyes, and sat there for a little bit. And then after a couple of minutes of sitting there, he looked up and said, "Okay, I'll tell you the whole story."
On April 19th, 2016, 10 days after Jordy Hudson was last seen alive, St. Augustine police arrest Harry Branson for her murder. Branson originally claimed he killed Jordy in self-defense, but now he says he's ready to tell the truth about what happened.
We have the whole thing on video. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to be 100% truthful with us. Branson told us that they had left the bar, that they had been hanging out and talking, and at some point, Jordy said something to make him mad.
I don't even know what she had said, but I snapped. I completely lost it, and I don't know why or how.
He punched her in the face. And his story was that at that time, Jordy pulled the steak knife from her purse and tried to attack him.
She swung the knife at me, and I grabbed her hand and shoved it back at her, and stabbed her in the throat.
She was much smaller than him, so if he was trying to attack her, I don't know that that is wrong of her to pull a knife. She may have pulled a knife, but you can't tell that from the video.
After his interview and him eventually telling us what had occurred, he agreed that he would give us the location of the body so that we could put Jordy to final rest.
Branson leads police to his property in a rural part of the county.
When you go up and you turn to the yard, there's a fire pit right over there, under the fire pit.
Did you burn her? No.
I buried her. I freaked out. I didn't know what to do.
He told us that he had started a bonfire afterwards so that nobody would see where he had just recently dug up the ground.
All right, so she's buried right there.
Yeah.
We had the evidence technicians from the sheriff's office start coming out, and we started excavating the fire pit. Ultimately, we located Jordy Hudson. She was wrapped up in a shower curtain in the hole about 3 feet down.
Her injuries are consistent with what Branson described in his confession. But there's an additional grisly detail he failed to mention.
Apparently, he cut off her fingers to remove the rings. It was unknown if that was a robbery or just an attempt to remove rings that might have helped identify her. What really gets me is that one of those cut off fingers was shoved into one of Jordy's neck wounds.
When the results of lab tests on Branson's mother's car come in, they strengthen the case. The blood is matched to Jordy Hudson.
Officials say Branson has been charged with murder and Thomas has also been charged with accessory to murder.
Branson faces a mandatory life sentence for the murder of Jordy Hudson. But in a bid to avoid life behind bars, he pleads guilty to second-degree murder and abuse of a dead human body.
Branson is a very violent subject. He would not say why he did it. He refused to tell us what exactly she said that made him mad.
Without the video, this crime may never have been solved. We may still be here today trying to find out where Jordy's at.
On May 30th, 2017, 13 months after the murder, Harry Branson is sentenced to 50 years in prison. For her involvement in the crime, Christine Thomas pleads guilty to accessory to second-degree murder and is sentenced to 8 years in prison.
The way she passed, that's just, nobody deserves what happened to her. That's not normal. Makes you think like what you could have done, or what would, could you say something else? It weighs heavy on you. It's something I'll never forget.
To create art seemed like such a natural part of her. She was just larger than life. I regret not acquiring a piece of Jordy's art. She was one of the true originals. I just never expected for her to die, because then it's like the creativity stops,
She missed the bus just by seconds. All of a sudden, she disappears.
She harbored this hope to continue her doctoral studies in the U.S., but then going back to China to be a leader in her discipline of environmental engineering.
Maybe this is a situation where she was kidnapped, or she's just confused, something happened to her medically.
There was almost an exact 1 minute conversation between the driver of this vehicle and Ying Ying.
I'd like you to be more forthcoming with me because I need to find where she lives. It's just a whole game. All those people want her home safe. You know what happened. Show me.
June 2017. 26-year-old Yingying Zhang is boldly following her dreams. She's a visiting scholar from China at the University of Illinois, conducting research on crop production.
Ying got here in April of 2017. I've got a picture of Mom, Dad, and Ying at the train station when she got on the train at home to leave to come to Illinois. She was really, really interested in crop production and improving methods of crop production back in China. She's in her early 20s. She's at school. She's learning. She's happy.
Before coming to America, Yingying grew up over 7,000 miles away in southeastern China. She's the oldest child in a close-knit family of 4.
Going to college, moving from 3 hours away from home was a lot. I can't imagine what it's like to move from a different country, trying to navigate life that way. I know that she did miss her family. She would call them often, and I know that they missed her a lot too.
She loved to sing. and she was part of a band called Cute Horse. She is someone who is genuinely very, very kind. She has a certain innocence to her. She was very close to her parents, especially to her mother.
Ran Gao is the father. He is a truck driver back in China. Li Fang is the mom, and she was in poor health and very fragile. Life was a struggle for them. Ying was a dutiful daughter who performed many of the functions within the household.
Coming from families with limited means, academic excellence was seen as the only way out. She did her master's degree at Peking University's graduate school, where she studied environmental engineering. Afterwards, she received a researcher position at the Chinese Academy of Sciences. Her monthly salary was 4,000 yuan, which would probably be about $700 US, and she would use that to supplement her family's income.
Now in 2017, Ying accepts a one-year research position as a visiting scholar at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign.
Champaign-Urbana is a modest-sized community, small town in a lot of ways. The students travel all around town, ride bicycles. It's very pastoral. And there are a significant number of students, undergrad and graduate, from China.
Being able to go to another country, especially the United States, to pursue further studies, especially trained as a scientist, is an affirmation of personal excellence.
On June 9th, 2017, 2 months after she arrives in the United States, Ying schedules a 2 p.m. appointment to tour a new apartment.
Ying was excited to be moving, and she was meeting one of the leasing agents to tour it and potentially sign.
She has the opportunity to move to a new apartment in North Urbana, which is north of campus. And so she has to take the bus to get down to Central Campus, and she has to get off that bus and catch another bus that's going to take her north on Lincoln out of campus, where it's student housing. There's a significant number of students.
5 hours later, at 7 p.m. that night, Ying is supposed to meet a group of her lab mates for their regularly scheduled meeting. She never arrives. They call and text, but no one can reach her.
Ying was always on time, so her lab mates thought that it was really weird that she didn't show up, because Ying would never not show up to anything without notice.
I was the head of the department Ying was associated with. I was at the movies with both my sons, and I got out and I got a text from the leader of the lab group saying, I have a student that's missing, and then I gave that person a call, and I just said, have you called the police?
At 9:24 p.m., Ying's lab mates report her missing to the university police department.
This was unusual. I've never had anything like that happen with a student gone missing. We were concerned about her. We wanted to know what was going on.
University police officers check her apartment. She's not there. But they find cash, important documents, and belongings, which tells them she didn't go far. While searching her apartment, officers locate her diary. They skim through its pages for clues to her whereabouts.
One of the last things that she had written in it was, life is too short to be ordinary. I think about that almost like weekly, if not daily. It just really shows how she wanted to continue living her life. I think it's just a really heavy thing to hear, especially it being the last entry there.
That evening, University of Illinois police make a difficult phone call to Ying's family in China.
The thought of Ying Ying leaving China and coming to the United States had to be scary to the family. Then to have this happen, they were devastated.
I think the best word I could use to describe what they were feeling was horrified.
On June 10th, the day after Ying Ying was last seen, University police begin working the case as a missing persons investigation.
The University Police Department went to all the hangout places where students congregated. They searched tirelessly over that weekend for Ying Ying.
I worked at the school newspaper, the Daily Illini. I think this was such a big case, and I was just interested in it in that way as a student journalist, both of us being new to the university. It just struck me on a personal level.
The city of Champaign, it's a smaller city. There was such a tremendous outpouring of support of Ying Ying's family to find Ying Ying.
Missing posters for Ying Ying were posted on every corner. People who were on campus were basically surrounded by these posters, and her picture was everywhere.
I was on the faculty at the University of Illinois College of Law. I had a graduate course where I would teach international students the American trial system. It was devastating to us. The thought that something like this could happen on our campus with one of our students, this is crazy. This is crazy.
The search for Ying Ying intensifies.
We received a lot of surveillance footage, and we were able to trace Ying Ying's entire route.
The investigation takes a dark turn.
Another university student said she was approached by a strange individual who presented himself as an undercover police officer and wanted her to get into the car.
And a community fears the worst.
Once it's clear that she got in that car, now it's kidnapping.
Monday, June 12th, 2 days after Ying Ying Zhang was last seen at the University of Illinois. Word spreads of her disappearance, shaking the quiet college community.
Police were all around looking for her, and students who were still on campus were extremely scared.
That fear increases as more details of the investigation become known. University police reveal that a check of Ying Ying's cell phone records show the last text she sent was on the afternoon of June 9th to the leasing agent for her new apartment.
At 1:39 p.m., Ying Ying sends a text saying she would be about 30 minutes late, and she ends up never showing up. At 2:38 p.m., he checks in again, seeing where she's at, but there's no answer. There's no more text between them, and the last communication anybody had with Ying Ying was with that leasing agent.
All of a sudden, the communication stops. She's just gone.
3 days into the search, University police reach out to the FBI for help.
They had been working almost nonstop for the last several days and were in some ways exhausted and in other ways just kind of needing some more resources. So when they called, our entire office showed up to help them with what they had on their hands.
The first move for FBI agents is to retrace Ying Ying's steps. They know on the day she went missing, she had an appointment to tour an apartment north of campus. Based on her cell data, they also know she took the bus.
She's going to come to main campus on a bus because she doesn't have a car. She's going to use public transportation.
We received a lot of surveillance footage from the metro system. The buses had a lot of cameras. And from those cameras, we were actually able to trace Ying Ying's entire route.
Federal agents scanned through the mountain of digital footage from June 9th, the day Ying Ying went missing. They get their first glimpse of her when they identify Ying Ying boarding a bus at 1:35 p.m.
You see Ying Ying get on the bus from her apartment. She smiles at the bus driver as she shows her bus ticket.
The surveillance video shows Ying Ying exiting the bus 17 minutes later at 1:52 p.m. Then she walks down the street toward another stop to transfer to another bus.
The security camera that caught Ying Ying, you can see Ying Ying trying to catch the next bus. I think she missed it by a few seconds. And then you can kind of see her in the footage, sort of like giving up and letting the bus go and probably trying to figure out what to do next.
Investigators scour these images of Ying Ying for any clues, and they see something that piques their interest. As Ying Ying waits for another bus, a black 4-door vehicle drives up to her and stops.
There was almost an exact 1-minute conversation between the driver of this vehicle and Ying Ying, after which she gets into the passenger seat and that vehicle proceeds to travel off camera.
Once it's clear that she got in that car, now it's a potential kidnapping.
With the case now potentially a kidnapping, concern about Ying Ying's safety grows. Using the extensive surveillance camera system in the university area, FBI analysts determined the vehicle is a black 4-door Saturn Astra sedan.
It had only been manufactured for a very short period of time. It was identifiable.
But they can't read the license plate.
Everyone within the FBI and the University Police Department was trying desperately to identify the license plate on that vehicle or some other mark that can make it highly identifiable so that way we could find it. The vehicle proceeds off of the university grounds, off of their campuses, and goes into a more residential area, and we lose a lot of the surveillance at that point.
Then a report comes in about a concerning incident on campus. On the same day, Ying Ying disappeared.
The University Police Department actually received a call from another university student, Emily Hogan, who said she was approached by a strange individual in a black vehicle on the 9th. We called her that night, and she came in and spoke with us and told us all about her experience. She said this individual presented himself as an undercover police officer and wanted her to get into the car. She declined and immediately called the police.
The FBI believes it could be the same car Ying Ying is seen getting into.
I think Ying Ying was understandably really stressed with everything that was going on and was put in that situation on a seemingly safe campus, so it makes sense that she would have trusted him and gotten into the car.
We didn't know whether other people were at risk or not, whether that person could be out there, that it might happen again.
Four days after Ying Ying Zhang vanishes from the University of Illinois campus, the FBI is searching for the black car she's seen entering on surveillance video. Agents believe the same Saturn Astra approached another young woman earlier on the day Ying Ying disappeared, and the driver tried to coerce her into the vehicle.
They turned to automobile registration records for Champaign County and the surrounding counties.
Agents discover there are only 9 4-door Saturn Astras registered in Champaign County.
On the 12th, our canvas teams went in and attempted to make contact with every owner of a Saturn Astra.
Investigators track down and clear all 9 potential suspects, one by one.
There was nothing specific at that moment that would have raised any additional suspicion.
Hoping to find something that can help focus their search, something they might have missed earlier, investigators return to the surveillance footage. Finally, something catches their eye.
Somebody noticed that the hubcap was cracked. It had a piece missing. And in zooming in, you could also see the vehicle had a sunroof.
One of the FBI agents who spoke to the Astra owners in Champaign County recalls seeing only one Astra that had a sunroof. He cross-references his list. It belongs to 27-year-old Brent Christensen.
Brent Christensen was a grad student in the physics department, a TA. He was teaching other students and earning his own degree at the same time. Generally pretty quiet and kept to himself.
Agents review the statement Brent Christensen made when they first asked him about the day Ying Ying went missing.
He said he was home that day, was sleeping, his wife was out of town, he was playing video games, and there was nothing suspicious at that time that would put any more attention on him.
Officers go back out to the apartment where Christensen lives, and the car is parked in the parking lot.
They looked at that hubcap, and it had the exact same break. The exact damage that was in that surveillance footage.
Investigators believe they found the car seen with Ying Ying in the surveillance video. It's a major discovery, but they want to confirm it was Brent Christensen behind the wheel before they confront him. They reach out to Emily Hogan, the woman who reported that a man in a black car approached her the same day Ying Ying was abducted.
We presented her with a lineup of individuals. She went through those pictures and immediately identified Christensen as the person who was driving that vehicle on that morning. Emily Hogan's experience, her identification of Christensen, showed that he was in some ways hunting to try to find a victim. Based on the information we had, we were very confident that Christensen had in fact kidnapped Ying Ying.
Armed with Emily's positive ID of Brent Christensen, Agent Manganaro races to his house and brings him in for questioning.
Why do you think that we brought you up here?
Because the car I own was seen picking up a girl that's missing. Yeah.
You originally told the agents that came to your apartment that you just played video games all day long. And you didn't leave the apartment.
Yep.
But it's fair to say that we know that that's not true, correct?
Why would I lie?
I work in the Detectives Bureau with the U of I, and you know what we have access to? Cameras. Do you think that we're not going to track a vehicle all over campus? I know that you picked her up. I know you did.
I guess there's something. I turn around on the Saturday. I just pick a girl up.
Okay.
I saw her picture. I don't think it was very much.
Do you remember the girl's name that you picked up?
No, she was talking very broken English.
What was her ethnicity? You said she had trouble speaking English. Well,
She was Asian. She was Asian. Okay. I was just driving around. I saw a girl, and she was very distressed.
Okay.
So I stopped the car and looked at her. He asked her if she needed help, talked to her for a little bit. Which I did very short. Because my apparently took the wrong turn compared to what she said. And that was enough to spook her. I'm not going to keep someone that barely won my car who just put me in there. So we're up. That was the last I saw her.
Well, okay.
My impression of Christensen was that he was capable of manipulation. We knew that something terrible had happened, and there was a lot of pressure. We were operating under the hope that she was still alive, maybe being held against her will by Christensen at an unknown location.
My theory is that she didn't get out of the car. It was being open with you. My theory is she was in there a little bit longer. I'd like you to be more forthcoming with me because, again, I need to find where she is. I'd like you to be more forthcoming with me because, again, I need to find where she is.
6 days after the disappearance of Ying Zhang, Brent Christensen admits to giving her a ride on June 9th, but insists he dropped her off and hasn't seen her since.
I don't know, sorry.
Investigators put their suspect on a 24-hour investigative hold.
I immediately set out to write a search warrant and met the magistrate judge that night while other agents were keeping an eye on the vehicle and got that search warrant signed to go seize it.
FBI agents inspect Brent's Saturn Astra, but they find no physical evidence linking Ying to the vehicle. The FBI is confident they have the right man, but they can't hold him without evidence.
They decide to release him and keep track of him, put him under surveillance.
We had 24-hour surveillance on him, GPS trackers on the car. We had aerial assets circling above, hoping that he might lead us to where she was at or give us some clue of a location to search.
It was a really scary time. The investigation was ongoing and nobody really knew what had happened to Ying. This was genuinely a really scary experience for the whole college community.
FBI surveillance teams continue tracking Brent Christensen for several days, but without any luck.
At that same time, some of the other agents met with his wife and had a voluntary interview with her at her residence.
Investigators learn their marriage is anything but ordinary.
Christensen and his wife had an open relationship. They each had another girlfriend or boyfriend on the side.
Brent met his girlfriend, Tara Bullis, on a dating site in 2017.
Christensen and Tara were involved in like a domineering, submissive type relationship. From Tara's perspective, it was mutual and she still maintained a great deal of control. When we went and talked to Tara, she was very open about their relationship, was very concerned about the missing student, Ying. and agreed to help us find out what was going on and if Christensen had any involvement. So Tara agreed to wear a wire for us and record the conversations that she had with him. In all of these scenarios, it can be a risk. We don't know if the person we're asking to help us is going to turn around and then tell Christensen everything that we just talked to them about. We don't know. But in this instance, we really needed to find Ying Ying, and so that risk was very worth it.
You have agents watching him, you have agents watching her. And, the risky thing, I think, for the FBI is that if he discovers that wire, he could harm her.
While this was going on, we also had massive efforts underway searching fields, searching dumpsters, searching parks, looking for anything that might give some sort of indication as to where Ying Ying was.
The family has this hope. They want her to be alive. And so if you have that hope, then she's going to be alive. In your own thinking, she's going to be alive. And so the Chinese community, the family, and the local community are going to have a march in support of the search for Ying Ying.
Let's find Ying Ying! Let's find Ying Ying! Let's find Ying Ying! Let's find...
The March for Ying Ying brought a lot of people in the community together and out to kind of commemorate her, and it was really emotional.
Let's find Ying Ying! Let's find Ying Ying!
The March for Ying Ying takes place on the University of Illinois campus on June 29th, 20 days after she was last seen.
Let's find Ying Ying! Let's find Ying Ying!
Brent Christensen decides he's going to participate in that march.
Christensen ordered Tara to attend that event with him. She agreed, and as she had done in her past interactions with him, wore a wire to that event.
It's 6:46 on Thursday, June 29th. We're at the benefit for the walk, so I'm thinking I'm just going to turn this on right now so that it's on while we walk.
At the event, Christensen started making disclosures to her that if the people at the event knew who he was and what he had done, they would flee in terror.
It's so weird. All those people there tonight. I want them safe, and I have no idea what happened. Nobody know what happened.
Nobody will know what happened. And nobody will know what happened.
Not even you. Like, I'm the only one.
Let's find Ying Ying! Let's find Ying Ying! Let's find Ying Ying!
June 29th, 2017. 20 days into the search for missing college student Ying Ying Zhang, students at the University of Illinois hold a march to support her. The marchers include Brent Christensen, the prime suspect in her disappearance. He doesn't know his girlfriend is wearing a wire for the FBI.
So I'm saying, when people were here, sorry for me.
College march? You feel you let nobody know?
I know a lot.
Huh?
I know a lot.
They're walking through Champaign, and he proceeds to tell her how he kidnapped Ying Ying, how he caused her a great deal of physical harm, how he assaulted her, bound her.
She was valiant. She was.
She would.
What?
She fight.
It is her deal with it. Resilient. I tried to choke her. She didn't. She stuck on her back. She died. It was. I couldn't believe it. he's back. It's unbelievable, like supernatural almost how he just is.
I know Tara was very fearful throughout this entire exchange, and you can actually hear in that captured recording her heartbeat.
I choked her for 10 minutes. I released her breath. I believe it. That she was out. So I carried her into my bathroom, up the bat, and I hit her on the head as hard as I could. And it broke her head open.
It was, in a lot of ways, a powerful moment for all of us. We knew that Christensen had kidnapped Ying Ying. We knew that something terrible had happened. And now we have him describing it.
I'm sure she's dead or not, so I got a knife. I grabbed my back and she grabbed the force.
Christensen was capable of immense violence, and he had a lot of pride in what he had done.
We ran away with it.
We had all been working so tirelessly over the last several weeks, the entire team, to get to this moment. We had enough to make an arrest.
On June 30th, 2017, the FBI arrests and charges Brent Christensen for Ying-Ying Zhang's death.
It was a relief to make an arrest, to put Christensen in jail, but we still didn't have Ying-Ying, and that was our goal. We wanted to find where she was.
When the charges are brought against Christensen, there's announced he's arrested. That's a shock. The family is hoping that he has hidden her away somewhere. It was tough. It took them a while to accept the fact that she was really dead.
Christensen's arrest brought a lot of relief to myself and the rest of the college campus. It was also really confusing of just how could somebody that I thought was teaching me something do something so horrible.
Law enforcement has every reason to believe Ying-Ying is dead. They need to find her body. But Brent Christensen is keeping his secret.
He declined a second interview, so our work wasn't done. And we continued to search the area and tried to find some sort of evidence as to where she was.
Police execute a search warrant at Brent's apartment. Although there's no sign of Ying-Ying, they do find evidence of an assault.
We find bloodstains on the mattress. We found evidence that blood had gotten up against the wall behind the mattress and had seeped down into the carpet. And then we find that the bathroom had been tremendously clean. We discovered Christensen had put in a work order to his apartment complex a couple days after he killed Ying-Ying for the grout and the tub in the bathroom to be redone.
Investigators also locate what they believe is the bat Brent used to beat Ying-Ying. They send the bat and blood samples to the forensics lab for testing.
The crime scene evidence absolutely confirmed the admissions that he made during the parade was true.
Investigators also dig into Brent Christensen's social media, where they find more disturbing information about their suspect.
He had some posts on different websites that discussed fetishes. There was one in particular that we found very concerning. It described kidnapping someone, putting them in a duffel bag, proceeding to have a sexual encounter. What was particularly disturbing was when you compared it to the Amazon purchase records of Christensen. We found a purchase of a very large green duffel bag that could easily fit a person inside it. And the realization that she was likely put into a bag just like this and carried against her will into the apartment, it hits you. It makes it real.
"21 days after Yingying Zhang goes missing, investigators have built a solid case against Brent Christensen. But they still don't have a body.
The family, there's certainly anger. There's always anger. To think that this man, in any form of brutal way, kidnapped and killed your daughter, it's beyond your ability as a human being to fathom. So the family's position was that he should receive the death penalty.
Although they know that not having a body will make it more difficult to win a conviction, prosecutors move